Hello, everybody, once again, and welcome to another edition of the Tefillah Word and Shiur. My name is R Yehudah Schwartz, and it's another privilege and honor to host another shiur. Shiur number 18 is today, and Baruch Hashem, we're coming along very well in our project or our awareness to be able to improve our davening skills, improve in the halachas of Tefillah, and being able to get the shul on time, staying in shul to the very end, being able to daven easy, but nachas, and so on and so forth. Now, as we do typically on Wednesdays, but today's Thursday actually, if you're watching this video now, so we are going to now do Achas Yosher on R who was extensively about Shmiras and davening on Tefillah, and now today's topic will be passing and sitting in front of a person who's davening, and the severity of punishment for those who take davening lightly. So those two. Next week we're going to start working actually on the halachas aspect of this by Chaim. But in the meantime, here we go. Yizamoid. One should be very, very careful. Bama shezir chazal. But what the Chachamim warned us, shlo ya'avor lifnei hamispalem v'lo yeshetech aba ames shemispalel. The Chachamim warning is not to pass in front of who was davening Shemona Esrei, nor to sit within 4 ames of someone davening Shemona Esrei or Amidah. It's said in Sephardic terms. Sishach or Chaim. Ilmaduhu mikrei invoy beposkim. And it's also was made aware and mentioned in all the poskims over there. And also these rules are the verses in the Torah, and they're recorded in halacha codes. I'll say it one more time. Ilmadul mikrei invoy beposkim. They derive these rules from the Pesachim of the Torah, and they record it as halacha codes. And also, it's also prohibited to walk 3 steps back at the end of Shemona Esrei Amidah within 4 ames of one davening Shemona Esrei. The Magen Avraham says that this includes even those who are off to the side and not directly in front of the person davening. That's not an shulchan kilafam dummy. Why? Because on the sides and the back of it, it's as if he's in the front of us, and therefore we cannot take back 4 ames this way. This, by the way, also from here we see, also that I learned recently, more or less, but a lot of people know this already, that when a person davens Shmes or Amidah, whatever you want to call it, so when they get to the Kayan Tzor, or in this case they also free, they want to take back 3 steps, they always look back and look sideways, and if the other person in back of him, in front of him, or on the side of him still davening Shemona Esrei, they have to wait and sit there and wait until the other person finishes. That's the halacha. Next, continue. Also, it is usher to leave the shul until davening is over. As I mentioned earlier, unless it's absolutely necessary. Our spoke strictly about this topic because when the road she has a shalom machlal voice Hashem yichu. I am a poskim. And right that these people who do leave may be considered among those whom the Navi says, those who forsake Hashem will perish. I am a poskim. Now I'll go off on it a little more in a minute or so. One who takes these matters lightly is as if he does not believe that Hashem is present in Shul, Chaz v'Sholom. and doesn't believe that he is standing before a king. This is also similar to the ones who's embarrassing a king. The kolchkin. Hoisek kain tom bekvius. This applies even more to one who does this habitually or regularly. Aside from Chil Hashem, that's because of Hashem's name. He also influences many others to follow his lead. And his penalty will be equal to all others combined. Think about it. And this is trying to be nice, how we try to speak to someone here. Some people say to us, oh, maybe Gabidan Kafschos, maybe a person had to do something as an emergency. Listen, as I've said in previous shiurim, a person who has to run out for an emergency, Hatzalah calls, that's one thing. That's a mitzvah to save someone's life. That's the responsibility of the Hatzalah man. That's okay. Someone who once in a while has to run to an emergency meeting and had no choice but to daven during the time, in reference to the early minyanim, okay, there's something else as well. Well, this is what I'm actually referring to, by the way, and I can tell is open easily, is when a person comes habitually late and habitually leaves in the middle of davening, meaning by Chazal Shatz, or even especially Bashar Tzion, or especially even after Kirtan Torah. Most people, Baruch Hashem, don't do this. Baruch Hashem. But there are many who actually do this, and it's habitual, and they keep on doing it day in and day out. Chai Kiyosky says clearly, and I'll say it again, I'll repeat one more time. From Zalza Berdinim Elu, someone who's Mezalza these dinim, Kil Imam Chaz Shalom. That Hashem is not even in front of you at all in the Knesset, or instead in front of a king, and embarrassing a king. And people, and besides, also a massive Chilul Hashem as well. You might not think that way, but it's definitely Chilul Hashem, big time. The next thing is the severity of punishment for those who treat the laws of davening very lightly. V'ayim b'zoyer chadash Rus Daf Lam Gimel. Zohar Chadash Rus Daf page 33 writes, Madai Hasheni beGehenem Niku Shachas. The second level of Gehenem is called Shachas. V'hu Eish Yuruko. And there's a green fire. V'ein Sham Kim Choshech. V'ein Sham Nachum Klal. There's only darkness there, and there's no musir at all. V'sham Danim. There were people where people are judged if they had a show in the cities and then not daven there. Hamadai Hashlishi Nikuduma. The third level is called Duma. Visham Nidonim Misha Eina Amen Acham Avorach. And where one is punished for not answering Amen at all, or for davening with constant interruptions. In other words, that means davening this, davening. First of all, davening quick. That's another issue on its own. That's definitely an issue there. Plus, also, every 2 seconds you see us. Good morning again. How are you? Good morning. Says Chaim Kivasky, no, that's called constant interruptions. That's usher. Or he davening talks all the time. Kagon Hamasaper Betfosser Chaysav Omer the Acher Chaysav Mafsik. And davening talks to his friend and davens a little more, a few more, and talks and davening again. Or or for ridiculing his fellow. Unbelievable words. Before I continue, you should know, Mitzvah Hashem, once we finish this, we'll go to a different sefer, Mitzvah Hashem, another easy sefer. That's some listeners of this shiur actually have referenced me to go to. and we're going to mention get to that direction hopefully down the road. Let's continue. Chasif Ramban, Baktam Aliyev. He writes, the Rega Echa began kosher misur Ev Kol Yomov. The one moment of Gehenna is more severe than having to suffer Eve's tribulations for an entire lifetime. V'ay ben Medrash, the Eish Shagehinam, Kisha Adam Rachak Mimena Tamalayna Pasais, he nibs Nichev Ba. He describes the fire of Gehenna to be so powerful that once standing 430 pasois of Tovlam pasois, a process between 2-3 miles away, will still get burned. See the Mishnah, see the Midrash where frightening descriptions of the retributions are mentioned. Unbelievable. Also, Lova in the future, after all the punishments are concluded, the person who is still left with an everlasting name, Nisho Shemolam B'Fichulam Amzal Tefillah, and also let's say it one more time. Moreover, after all the punishments are concluded, the person is still left with an everlasting name as one who was lax with prayer or was dishonored the shul, as mentioned above. As mentioned in the Medrash of the Chumer, as mentioned above, mentioned the Chumer says in the future era, people will be referred to according to their actions, and they will have to suffer indescribable shame for eternity. Mama Chazal also says, and also Mama Chazal, Shehi Ama'ula Shebrachis. And my Katan Daf says that since the ultimate blessing, to be in the words of Yoel. Actually, I think I skipped a little something here. It says the ultimate blessing, the words of Yoel, that my people will not be shamed evermore. In this world, on the first day, the person becomes aware of his embarrassing situation. Feels that a person becomes aware of this embarrassing situation, feels extremely humiliated, unbelievable, to the degree that people have been known to commit suicides out of such shame. Unbelievable. Wow. But after that, as time progresses, I'm sorry, I skipped a little bit. Someone who goes in this downward spiral commits suicide. But the opposite, that the grace, as time goes on, the shame decreases and wears off. But in the opposite way, boy. However, by contrast, the disgrace in the next world never loses intensity. It remains forever as it was in the first day. But Zeh Loshan Ben Yoina, and this also writes as well. The humiliation of the soul after it is disconnected from the body is greater than the disgrace was while still in the body. Why? Because it's natural for the body to forget. Even a person does something disreputable as ashamed from others for a year or two, eventually becomes completely forgotten. The alcohol at a very minimal is gaber Allah of the Asasha Hadava Shiktas Ashikha Shwasa Lavibusha. Or at least the intensity of the shame subsides. However, when the soul is alone without a body, it doesn't experience forgetfulness. Because it is pure and clear, doesn't have any of the attributes of the physical. You get embarrassed from Hashem, the King of Kings. Lama Tama Abusha, you stand with the Busha, Kaisa Shaw, one time, Kaisa Shaw. At that time, she hoisa a mess of fun of. As gonna be always and always gonna stand in front of him. A palm, a hotama mi versus la'olam. And it's a shame when the king is eternal forever and for always. So Shamil Zal, and this is what, and that's what is mentioned as Zal. Oy la la sebusha, oy la la zekluma. And we'll say, and then we'll say this: woe for that shame, woe for that disgrace. I can't shine me. The Hefech Hazar Bazeh, one who's vigilant in this area. My Kavod Shemayim brings like Kavod Shemayim. But Tefillah is Kabbalah going to Hashem. He'll show honor to Hashem, and his davening will definitely be accepted as it sanctifies Hashem's name. In the coming shiur, I'm going to actually speak about different halachas. Actually, we're getting very close to that very soon. Okay, let's continue with the story right now to close our shiur. As we always read at this time, the book, the Tefillah, the Magid, from Pesach Kron. This week's story focuses on last Soik with the Besaida. To be Osik in the words of Torah. But this story turns an interesting twist, and as you'll see in the story now. And the story is called Competition in Haifa. The most renowned Magid of our time is Shalom Shvadron, lived from 1912 to 1997, who was known throughout the world as a Magid Shalayim. For more than 5 decades, Shalom delivered drashos throughout Eretz Yisrael, America, and Europe. Wherever and whenever he spoke, he attracted large, attentive audiences. Early in his speaking career, an incident occurred that led him to gain an insight from a good Ador. It taught him the proper function and objective of a public speaker. He never forgot that advice and repeated it often, because its wisdom is applicable not only to public speakers. It's also remarkable that Shalom Shvadron even repeated this story because the lesson came at his own expense. However, this is in itself a measure of the man. He viewed his goal as Magid not to gain the adulation of admiring audiences, but to teach, inspire, and guide people regarding how to act and react as Torah Jews. To Shalom Shvadron, the message, not his personal glory, was significant. In the early 1950s, Haifa was the only city in Eretz Yisrael where public buses operated on Shabbos, unfortunately. And all the other cities throughout the country, public buses remained in their garages from just before Sunday and Friday sundown Friday until Shabbos was over. This blatant desecration of Shabbos, instituted by the government of Haifa, had an adverse effect of the general public's attitude toward the honor of Shabbos. And for this reason, the observant Jews of Haifa initiated an annual public seminar dedicated to the furtherance of Shabbos observance. Speakers from all over the world, speakers from all over Eretz Yisrael would be invited to participate in the seminar. And on Shabbos, there were speeches in the shuls stressing the splendor, significance, and importance of the Holy Shabbos. And every year, Shalom was invited to be one of the principal speakers. One year in 1951, the Shabbos seminar took place right after Yom Ha'atzmaut, which is Independence Day. As part of the Yom Ha'atzmaut celebration, the Israeli Army parade had taken place. Representatives from the Air Force, Navy, paratroopers, and infantry were among the marchers. Leading the parade was the Mayor of Haifa, singing in an open car alongside some female soldiers, who waved this and smiled to the cheering crowds. Shalom had a great love for Eretz Yisrael, but when he heard about the parade in which women participated, he became incensed. He felt this is not appropriate at all. He had already spoken on so many times against women being inducted into the army. And this public spectacle in which they had participated he found utterly distasteful. He considered it an open affront to authentic Torah Judaism. And that Friday night, That Friday night, Shalom Shadon took his place in front of the audience, looking forward to hearing about the laws and sanctity of Shabbos, but he felt it was his duty to speak out against what he considered the immodesty of the parade. He sharply criticized the citizens of Haifa by having allowed this indecency, and he castigated the army for what he considered improper behavior. It was only after he finished his strong diatribe that he began to talk about Shabbos. However, by then, many listeners were very disturbed, even angry. Avshalom had roundly rebuked them, their mayor and their army. They felt that he had abused their privilege they had given him to address the public of the beauty of Shabbos. They had come to be inspired, but instead they were disheartened. They hardly absorbed the war he said about Shabbos. On Shabbos morning and afternoon, when he spoke in other shuls, Avshalom again began by criticizing Friday's events. In every congregation, in every shul, there were people who became enraged by his comments. If Avshalom's speech was a storm, the reaction to it was a tornado. Sunday morning, a meeting was held in Haifa's municipal building. The result was that the city government banned Avshalom from speaking publicly in Haifa for an entire year. When Avshalom returned to Shalayim, he was notified of the governmental edict, which disturbed him. As a very sensitive person, he gave the matter a great deal of thought. Had his actions been correct? On one hand, he felt it was duty to speak out against what he considered a public display of improper behavior. But on the other hand, he offended and alienated many people. Was he right or wrong? He decided to seek the counsel of one Gedolei Hador, the Briskerov, Yitzchak Zev Velvel Soloveitchik. Avshalom presented the facts to the Briskerov as he perceived them. The parade, the participation of female soldiers, and his obligation to speak out at the Shmir Shabbos seminar, he mentioned them all in detail. The Briskerov listened attentively and then asked Avshalom, "Did you ever wonder why the blessing that we said every morning on learning Torah is worded the way it is? We say, Asher Kedishonim B'Mitzasav Tzimanu La'asik B'Divrei Soda, who has sanctified us with his commandments and has commanded us to engage in the words of Torah. So why do we use the words La'asik B'Divrei Soda? To engage ourselves in the words of Torah. We should say Lima Torah, to study Torah. For is not studying Torah the essence of the mitzvah? The answer is, continued the Rav, that the word Esek also means business. In order to have atzlocha, success in Torah, one must treat it as he would a business, with a sense of purpose, with diligence, and with its primary goal always in mind. Your purpose in Haifa was to inspire people about Shmir Shabbos. Had you been in Haifa to raise money for a business, would you have spoken against the parade? Definitely not. Certainly not. You were diverted from your goal and talked about something else. As a result, your objective of encouraging people to adhere to the laws of Shabbos failed. You didn't accomplish anything for Shabbos, nor did you accomplish for Tznius. The Briskerov made me realize, said Avshalom Shadon, there was the Yetzer Hara, evil inclination, not the Yetzer Toiv, good inclination, that caused me to speak out the way I did. This was to prevent me from furthering the honor of Shabbos. When a person says, I mean business, it indicates his seriousness, and the Briskerov thought that Torah demands no less of a commitment. Baruch Hashem, Aboisai, we're now done with 9 weeks. 9 weeks of the shiur now. Let's continue to spread the word of this wonderful shiur. And the images are helping, and as Chos, we should be able to be a bench, kol mil meitav, and our tefillah should be miskabel. Have a wonderful day.